G'day listeners and viewers right across the country. Welcome to Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, first home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts and all-round property advisors to the people of Australia. This is the final episode of Everything Property and a little bit different to wrap up season one. But first, when we launched Everything Property in the middle of 2020, never in our wildest dreams could we have imagined that we'd amass almost 150,000 collective views over 19 episodes. So we are truly grateful for everyone who has contributed, watched, shared, viewed, liked, all that sort of stuff on season one of Everything Property. But of course, it would not be possible without our great guests, and I'm going to go through them quickly. We've got Daniel Baxter, Patrick McKinnon from Place Ascot, David Shahidi, Paul and Eric Korn, Action Realtors, Cameron Proof from I Want That Design, Alex and Toby from Over and Above, Jack Corbett, of course, from Corwood and Associates, Ryan Tuckwood, Matt Cunliffe from Mortgage Choice, Michael Pell, Darren Fisher, James Fitzgerald, Scott Northcott, Matt Sarama, Adam and Reese from Quit Renting Queensland, Paul Bloomfield from MG Homes, and Andrew and Brooke from Sadley Property Group. So for today's episode, we thought we'd round it out with just a few of our favourite snippets from those amazing guests for season one of Everything Property. So sit back, enjoy the final episode of 2020, and we look forward to seeing you again in early 2021 with a whole heap of new guests right across the country for Everything Property by Pivotal Homes. Enjoy.
We think back, we've all obviously bought our first homes before, but it is without doubt the biggest financial decision we've all ever made.
Stressful.
Right? It's huge.
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
At that point, when I was in Sydney, we spent $500,000 on my first home, many years ago. I thought the world was about to end. I was like, what am I doing? This is crazy.
Where was that, mate?
In Miranda.
Yeah, right, okay.
So in the Sutherland Shire. So
up Cronulla.
Yeah, that's it. I like the Raiders. But it's such a huge decision. And unfortunately, it is, like you touched on, Tom, it's one that a lot of people make a lot of mistakes when they do it. And that's what we really wanted to create when it came to the e-learning side of what we do as well. Give them everything that they need to be able to make smarter, better informed decisions. So that first property purchase, whether it's, maybe buying established or, obviously we concentrate on that new market now, but it's a good one. It's one that they look back on fondly and they feel good about, and ultimately it's a good investment for them. It's not just, a home and then they lose money in 5 years if they need to sell.
And I think that's someone having feedback of what's the strategy. Yep. Is this going to be your home? A lot of them think this is going to be our home for 30 years. I think the average home is like 5 to 7 years before they sell it. And a lot of the time, once you actually sit down and explain the different strategies, explain, okay, your dream home may cost you 1.5, but the home that you might start with is 500,000. How do we get you to that $1.5 million home? There's really good strategies to follow. And when you're going to purchase that $500,000 house, you've got to have that team. And I think that's what most of them overlook. If you don't have the right solicitor, you don't have the right builder, you don't have the right agent involved.
Finance broker.
Yeah, I think that's 60% of it as well. Yeah. Without having that core team there.
Proven again, as property always does.
As the stock market has it too. Like even the stock market's resilient, So you think if the stock market's bounced back, how do you think property price is going to fall 10%?
Yeah, exactly right. And Australia's love affair with property just continues to evolve because it's proven again it's safe as houses. But what we noticed that there was definitely a mindset shift from the purchaser's point of view as to they weren't necessarily willing to pay the advertised price. They had the idea or
they want a deal.
Yeah, correct.
And they still do. Like we're finding to get deals together, we've got to be pretty creative. But, like for the vendor, why wouldn't you dust up, let's say the property's worth 1.5 and you're getting offers at 1.45. Why wouldn't you transact that and go buy something at the other end too? So you're buying and selling in the same market.
Staging properties.
Oh.
Important or not?
Well, as I said with that Kenmore Hills house, like they had, I'll send you the photos too, the before and afters. And the big thing with the photos, when you looked at when it went online, I just went, it looks so empty. The house looks so empty. And she rang me and she goes, what did you think? I said, I won't tell you. I'll tell you if she doesn't sell it.
Yeah.
And then when I said, it just looks crap.
Yeah.
And it just looks so empty. The house is gorgeous. And my stylist came in and she just moved the dining room out of this, made it a piano room, put that in the living room, made it full, went and bought 2 couches, spent $2,000 on furniture. And everyone who went in just went, this is like a showpiece. And the photography is everything. You know, we use a really good photographer. We use a great videographer, drone footage, and, you know, like show people. You've got to show the house in, like if you're selling a $2 million property, you've got to show it like a $2 million property.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can't,
iPhone photos aren't going to do it.
No.
Yeah.
And you've like, we're even going to the next stage now. We're actually meeting with a commercial company.
Right.
And they do 200, 300 grand budgets on film for commercials and all this kind of stuff. And we've got a really big developer we're working with for over 200 houses, townhouses and apartments in Ascot. And we're pitching to them next week, you know, rather than spending $2,000 on a property video, like spending 10, spending 20. And you know, the Courier Mail, we don't use the Courier Mail as much anymore. Like I did heaps last year, but I think it's kind of lost its thing. So we're going to start investing in, I'm going to tell my clients, if you've got a $3 or $4 million home, let's spend 10 grand on a video. Like let's go hard. Like, you know, like rather than spending like we spend probably 1,500 plus 1,500 on media, social media, you know, spending 5 to 10 on the video and showing the property in a way that's just, you know, blows people's mind, like a short feature film almost, you know what I mean? So we want to be on the forefront of that. And with my developers, it's the same thing. Like if we want to sell it off the plan, okay, great. Let's go get some shit hot renders. Let's go and let's sell this thing like a story. Like that's the best part of property. Those people are just a pleasure to deal with because it's so nice. The higher end can be pretty tricky. You can get a lot of personalities and, you know, different things, but it's challenging and that's what makes you good at it. Like I say to my staff all the time, like whenever they got the shits or you can see them annoyed or they're going home, I go, mate, that's why you get paid, mate. I said, if they could do it themselves or someone else they would be. This is where you earn your money, mate. Smile. You're on camera.
Right.
and you just got to change your mindset. Like I have a sale fall over and it's the worst feeling in real estate. You'd be Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock.
Tommy's used to them.
Yeah. It's the worst feeling, right? You get this stupid email on a Friday at 5. So I've got a new strategy. I started doing this years ago, but I rang the vendor. I go, Hayden, Pat, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate.
Guess what? Sales fallen over. How good. We get to open home tomorrow. Let's sell it. And on my they're going, are you fucking like, and you know, I go, no, it has fallen over. It sucks. But guess what, mate? I'm opening it tomorrow and we're going to be there with a new buyer. I'm getting on the phone right now. I'm heading back to the office. Yeah. And my energy, they're like, oh shit, yeah, all right. Well, we're back on. You know, so
they must be making some more money.
I had this deal. And it was one of my first deals. It was a shop on Sandgate Road with a house out the back. Right. And my first quarter, I sold it for $1.2 million. But it really had a clause in it that the fire rating had to be changed. Right. And we went through 4 months of this painstaking buyer, and the seller was just pissed and spent all this money. Sale fell over. He's just been a really rude guy. And I did that call to him. I said, look, sales fallen over. And they're like, 4 months, what are you doing? Anyway, we only had 2 inquiries in that 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And I rang both of them. They were both Asian buyers. I booked them 15 minutes apart, and both of them came in, multiple offers, and sold it that day cash, unconditional, for 35 grand more, which is, you know, the sellers were just like, you're kidding me. But if I didn't have that energy, what's
you would have defeated people buy into it, you know, if you give up.
And you know, my biggest thing, my biggest card that I do have is my energy. That's one thing you control. And, you know, like I'm so busy every day, but I still get up in the morning. I still go for a 40K bike ride, and I still get, you know, you still got the days. I can't train during the day. I can't do those things. So you've got to create your own energy, and energy is everything. If you have it, other people will just, you know, love it, and that's what they want. And, you know, that's what gets you most of my business is from my energy.
And that really is the core of purchasing now, isn't it? The finance is such an important and pivotal part, pardon the pun, but a pivotal part of purchasing property.
Yes.
And so tell us about the finance side of things of the business first before we go into the property side.
Definitely. Like now more than ever, like you mentioned, Hayden, is the time you need to have the right broker on your team to help you navigate finance. Like finance is always a bit of a complex situation where you're trying to match the right clients to the right lender. But now with COVID hitting, these new grants, you need to really, really get that expert advice in knowing how you're positioned and how to get the finance through to be able to successfully purchase in the current environment.
And with the market, it's amazing how much 2 or 3 weeks can change things. You know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was not a lot of buyer activity. and just in terms, I suppose, more so of fear from people, whether whether their job was safe or whatnot. But on the back of some of the stimulus, and now we're starting to see, the restrictions ease, albeit in Melbourne not going very well at the moment, but general confidence of people in the property market or even the share market, which we mentioned last week with another guest, Patrick McKinnon. It's shown that Australia's economy is very, very strong to cope with things like this. If you look around the world and see how other countries are navigating through such a turbulent, unprecedented time, Australia's, we certainly got challenges to go through, and there's some challenges ahead in multiple industries to overcome. But the property industry itself has shown again why it's Australia's number one asset class and why it's the Australian dream to own bricks and mortar.
Definitely. And if you look historically, Hayden, if you look back on any GFC or any downturn we've ever had, property historically has held its ground, and we've actually seen, if anything, post any downturn, growth. If you look back on 2008 and the recession, the GFC we had back then, property bounced back strong. We saw anywhere between 2% and 35% growth in 2009 following the GFC. If you look back in 1991, which is the last recession Australia had.
With every little bit of information from what finance brokers have shared with me, and you've probably got to deal with 2 or 3 requests for information. So you're at almost 3 months or 4 months before you even getting close to an approval.
So it's so important to go to the right lender in that situation, because that could mean that client loses out on that opportunity versus getting it because the bank's taking too long to pick up the file. And in the current market heating up the way it is at the moment, that means they miss out on that property as opposed to going to a lender that's going to pick it up much quicker and being able to secure it.
Yeah, and some pre-approvals I see from different banks are different. They all have different, subject to what, can be subject to so many things. Each bank requires that. So that doesn't mean that client is as qualified just based on one bank's pre-approval either.
But you said they're your support team, and I think, as salespeople, even Tom and I, at the forefront, we get a lot of the accolades and a lot of the praise, and you're doing such a good job and whatnot. But it really comes back to the people behind us as individuals who are maybe on the forefront and pushing things out, on social media or whatever. It often looks like it's off our back, but it's the incredible work that our team do, and obviously your team as well, that enable that success.
100%. If it wasn't for our team, we wouldn't be who we are, and they are everything. So.
It allows us to get on with it and do what we do.
That's it.
Mate, on a personal note, I know that obviously personally, we've had the pleasure of being friends as well, but
she grabbed me by the arm, took me, and I think it was a column or something. She said, "What do you think of that?" And I looked at it and I said, "No, that's fine." She said, "Oh, good," and walked away. And that supervisor walked up and said, "Mate, I don't believe it." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "I've told her about 19 times." He said, "You've been here 5 minutes and the problem's fixed." I said, "You're the builder." I said, "A lot of owners don't believe the builders because you never see good things on TV about builders.
Correct.
They're always the bad bits."
Bad news sells.
That's it, So,
problem that has ever been encountered on the building side. You guys have seen it. What are some of that stick in your mind as to some of the ones that you just can't believe, and some of the outcomes that you've been able to produce for your clients to ultimately get a resolution and some sort of level of I suppose fulfillment upon completion?
I've had houses repainted inside. The paintwork's been that bad, and I've asked for the director of the building company to come and have a look. And I used to say, "Oh, would you accept this in your house?" And over a few years, supervisors and that used to say, "Yeah, I would." And I knew they were lying, and I wondered how I could beat that. So what I do now is, if a supervisor, it depends on their age, if they're a younger supervisor, I'll say to them, "If this job was for your mother and father, would you accept it?"
Actually 120 to 150 grand of rent they've spent, on someone else's mortgage. So, we make them realise that during the buying process. And about affordability, we're certainly, we don't want them spending their entire credit. We want them to afford the home they're actually going to buy. We ensure they understand the mortgage repayments and the commitment they're about to make. And then once you sit down and go through those numbers and you encourage them to most likely, a lot of times spend less than their buying capacity. They're paying similar rents at the moment to their mortgages anyway.
Yeah.
If they are paying a bit more in mortgage, it's again for their own property and for their own nest egg in the future.
To get into the market,
Yep.
what would you say to them?
Similar to what Mitch said, call us.
Yeah.
So obviously we've scaled our business. We do a high number of transactions, and we help a lot of clients, but we also have that personalized strategy. We have a personal touch. You have a consultant that will guide you through the entire process in regards to determining your buying capacity and taking you through the buying process, choosing the right type of property in the right type of area in your areas of interest. We don't want people maxing out their credit. We want people being able to buy an affordable property and think of it long term. We also work with independent solicitors. So
is key. So everyone lives differently. Everyone has preferences in how they live, or what's important to them in their homes. So having multiple opinions can really sort of bring the best outcomes. So the preferences that people put on things. So for some people, having direct access from the laundry to outside, for instance, is really important, and for other people, not so much. So
It's so funny you say that, because I'm always arguing. I'm like, the laundry doesn't need to go directly outside, because I probably don't do the washing.
if you use the line or you use the dryer, everyone lives differently. So with every design, there's multiple choices that we have to make as designers, and what choice is the right one can be very hard to decide on your own. So that's where having a team around you really helps to make those decisions and make the right ones. So
accentuates that house and that product. And
Something other than a jelly bean garden.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Come on, we've got it. And I think councils need to sort of get a little bit more proactive in that as well. Because I think it just makes that house a lot more livable. Everybody walks their dogs or whatever, their children down the street or whatever. So therefore, if you've got this community and you've got this sense of community, and you've only got why do you want to live in that estate? Because it's landscaping. You look at Hope Island and Sanctuary Cove, and all of these other bigger master plan communities. I mean,
the market or the economic turmoil that comes along with such a monumental impact, I suppose.
Definitely.
What are you guys finding out there in terms of your investors' confidence? Are people, what's the mindset of your clients and even also past clients? How are they feeling and how are they faring? Are they nervous, or are they confident in the decisions that they've made? What's your take?
Look, from my opinion, it's certainly a mixed bag. Me being more heavily involved in the projects and the renovations and things like that, we're seeing a lot more opportunity. But that doesn't mean that it's all easy. It doesn't mean that people are having fire sales for everything. It's not a situation where you're just going to go buy a house of land for $1 and it's all good. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's also the savvy investors out there that are heavily competing for less stock.
Yep.
And that's something that we're competing with as well. There might be less stock on the market, and there might be less buyers in the market, but it doesn't mean that it's still not a competitive place to bid.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about the equilibrium between supply and demand, and I still believe that right through this, particularly in the markets that we're working within for our clients, which is select, it's very select, that the demand is still outweighing the supply. So, that's what we need to push property prices up. It's when it tips the other way that we start to get into trouble. So there may be less stock on the market, but there are buyers out there, and there may be less investors in the market as well. But the savvy investors know that it's a good time to buy, because if you go in 6 months down the track or 12 months because everyone seems to be waiting for these repayment holidays to stop and JobKeeper to stop and, apparently it's all going to go up in smoke. But the thing is that if you wait till all of that calms down, that's when everyone's going to be back in the market. So that's, this whole, I have these conversations every single day as a buyer's agent. Obviously there's lead generation involved in this business, and the conversation is very much about, well, why not now? And why do you want to wait? Tell me the psychology behind you wanting to wait. And just that education piece about exactly what I've just said, that when the masses are back, that's when you risk paying too much.
And it's interesting because, we've definitely noticed on the new house and land side of things, which is obviously the space that we dominate. Not dominate, but
yeah,
we do. But
killing it.
that we focus on heavily. No, but what we found was COVID March hit and developers pulled back all their stock pipelines. So they were like, okay, well, where any new land releases, any new sites, we're going to put them on ice. And then home builder comes out and it's a bull rush and there's just people going ballistic, taking anything they can. And that pipeline of stock isn't there anymore. So you've got a whole entire greenfield suburbs that would normally have 30, 40, 50 pieces of land at any one point over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Dried up. And there's still that, especially in Queensland, that demand for home builders the largest in Australia because of the price point, the attractiveness for owner-occs getting into the marketplace. The supplies, even in the greenfield areas, is
So
drying
low.
up.
Yeah,
So
it's
how
up
is
to
that?
6 months of no land supply in some of these estates, where there's always been 12 months of supply to come. There's just 6 months of nothing. So we've got no
So there's
releases coming.
complete lull.
Yeah, and if that's happening in greenfield areas, what's happening in some of those blue chip infill areas? Like where there's only a select few splitter block type scenarios, and there's a lineup of 15, 20 people waiting.
Her expectations of me are. I worry about what my expectations of myself are. As long as I fulfill those, I'll sleep well.
Mate, amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that such in detail. And I mean, what we're going through in the world, as you said, is so unprecedented, so challenging on so many fronts. But let's talk about property and how that's going and how your clients are, I suppose, perceiving what's going in the world from a property side of things, their confidence levels, their motivations. How are you finding the market in general in the purchases that you're working with?
Yeah, I think there's probably, it becomes quite a two-tone. So you have probably an 80-20 split.
Yeah.
I think 80% of people who are typically a beta type character and or a follower will tend to now go into their shell, wait for the storm to pass and wait to be invited back out of that shell, whereas I think the other 20% now who are possibly the more astute and in 30 years time will definitely be the more affluent are the ones that recognize that a down market creates the greatest opportunities, So I've been promoting a little bit of the John F. Kennedy quote that the word crisis in Mandarin is represented by two symbols. Separate those symbols and they individually represent the words danger and opportunity.
Right.
So what is a crisis? It's a dangerous opportunity.
Right.
Are you focusing on the danger or the opportunity?
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of reinforced to me that when through adversity, people will show their true colors. I always talk about friendships, business partnerships, even your marriages. When things are going well, it's easy.
Yeah, things are good.
What happens when shit hits the fan? How committed is somebody then? How considerate is somebody then? And I think to know it's okay not to know stuff, and you'll never know what you don't know. And it's actually the real gift that we're given in life is the ability to ask questions and be exposed to those that have an experience in this
100%.
space. It's why most of my closest friends are over 50.
Yeah.
I know I'm only 29, but most of my closest friends are over 50 because I love tapping into their wealth of experience and knowledge as well,
And as we become more experts in our field, I've noticed just for me, I always, like any other field that I'm not sure of, I always go see a professional. I don't try and cut corners. I don't go any other way. I'm always going to see that professional in the field. Yeah, it just changes your thoughts on it.
You need to spend money to make money. So many people are so reluctant to let a dollar leave their bank account. Like, I sat down and did like the T. Harv Eker and Jim Rohn, the Robert Kiyosaki's, and I kind of had that, what they call the swimming pool mentality. So my money was a swimming pool, right? I believed that having $1 million for someone like me, us, like kids like us don't make $1 million. So I had 1 million. And then like a swimming pool, a little bit reality of the situation. So like, you know, as the property marketer, that's going to get 450 in rent.
Yeah.
You say 470 because it makes the numbers look better.
Yeah.
And then when it's 450, there's this market condition that caused it to be 450.
There's
right?
more available. Yeah.
So basically, you're full of shit.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But it made your sale better. I took a different stance to that. I'm going to take whatever the reality of the situation is, and I'm going to take 15% off.
Yeah, great.
So if I'm going to get 450, I'm going to tell them, let's work all of these numbers on 400. Because if you love it at 400, I'll blow you away at 450.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So and again, salespeople will tell you under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
Saying it and doing it are two different things. And I'm not saying do it because it's the right thing to do for your customer. I'm saying doing it because it makes more fucking sales.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like If I come to you right now and say, Tom, you come and train with me and I'll have you at 6% body fat by the end of the month.
I'll take it up.
But when you go home after signing up, what are you thinking? Do you believe that that's possible?
Well, then you start doubting, is it really going to happen that quick?
And when I get you to 8.5% body fat at the end of that month, are you happy or sad? Have you achieved or have you missed your target?
Yeah,
Do you
that's
know what I
right.
mean? So
Yeah.
now there's an inherent level of disappointment with what was a great outcome.
Yeah, 8.5.
If I think I can get you to 8.5, let me make a promise to get you to 10. Because if I said 10 and I got you to 8.5, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And every single one of your friends or family members is going to contact me.
Obviously, you got Steve Baxter, Glenn Richards, and Andrew Banks as investors, but also partners. That's obviously been a massive eye opener as well.
Yeah, just lessons every single day. And I think if you go into it for the money, then you're not going to get the lessons.
Yeah.
And we never. Hopefully this comes across right, but we didn't go into it for the money, which I actually said it in there. I said, Steve, we're not in it for the money, which he said, don't ever tell an investor you're not here for our money. You're here for our money, so call me on it. But the reality, we wanted their mentorship, we wanted their guidance, and they've been unbelievable. I remember Glenn Richards said two things to me straight after. They stopped filming, so we're in there for like 2.5 hours, and you only see about 12 minutes on TV. We walk around the back and I'm thinking, well, did they just give you some cash? I was pretty naive to the investing world. And he said, Ryan, can I ask you something? I was like, yeah, fire away. He goes, do you think you work hard? I was like, yeah, I think I work really hard. He went, you haven't even started. And I was like, oh shit. And then he said to me, can I tell you what my job is as an investor? I was like, yeah, please do. He said, my job is to challenge your thinking and to raise your line of sight. So he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to challenge every decision that you make. So you question yourself and you make the decision from an educated perspective instead of an emotional one because you're the business owner. So I'm going to be non-emotionally attached to this business. And he says, I want to stop you looking down and in and get you looking up and out. And that's exactly what they've done. So how can I be remembered as the one that I did help you? Like regardless, I'm just going to selflessly give you something right now. Reciprocity, one of the biggest tools of influence out there, is can I give selflessly to you? And then, do you know what? If you do decide to invest in property sometime in the future, you'll remember the one that helped you, especially through COVID, right? There's the amount of touch points we've had through COVID when people are doing it genuinely tough has gone 10x. And that was some advice from Andrew Banks. As soon as COVID hit, be more recent, more frequent with your existing customers and all prospects than ever before. Put out more content than ever before. And that was probably another reason for the push of the 14-day challenge.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Look, we're out of time, but absolutely loved having you on. I think both from our introducers and our partners, there's some really good value there.
COVID, like in the second week of March, we were like, when is this going to start popping up in our vals? And next thing you know, boom, there's a comment there in the valuation about COVID. In the resale space, there hasn't really been any impact there. You know, we're seeing clients that are surprisingly happy with valuations on their existing properties coming in. You know, I've got clients going, holy, I didn't even expect that.
Yeah.
And I gave you an example personally before. I didn't expect the value I got on my property, especially in the current climate. So I don't necessarily think the banks are putting pressure down on them. You know, I've seen some new stuff that we've had issues, but that's not anything new to COVID. You know, we've always had, you know, interesting times there, and you could send 10 different values out and get 10 different results. One person has a bee in their bonnet, the rest don't. So I don't think COVID's had an impact yet. Obviously, all the support packages that the banks have had to be able to keep people in their properties and their loans and not default has obviously helped keep the market buoyant. We had a lot of bullish investors start ringing the phones early in the piece, wanting to get prepared to be pre-approved for finance. They can go buy all these fire sales that are about to come up, and they're still sitting on their hands waiting.
Right,
So we haven't seen anything drastic in vals yet.
Yeah, let's talk about. You mentioned the banks being a little bit, or the support packages for everyday consumers to help them get through what is a challenging period. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was government. Was that off the bank's own bat, or the government legislated that to make them do that?
I think the government's come out and said the banks need to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The banks have then, like, no one's getting a free ride. You might have your payments paused for 6 months, but your interest is still getting capitalised. The banks are making it well known to the people taking those support packages on board.
So talk about that, Cap.
I've got a good head for podcasts.
It's a shame this one's filmed.
It's filmed, is it? Turn off the camera. Put it on you, Hayden.
Mate, that's a really, really good point because, as you mentioned, it's going through tough times, whether it be business or personal, gives you an appreciation for the good times.
Yes.
So having, I went through it when I first came to the industry as well, where it was just really, it was in the middle of the Asian, Chinese offshore purchasing. So it was just deals were coming in, unconditional deals were coming in. And I'm thinking like this property thing is easy.
You think it's normal.
Yeah, that's right. Like how good is this, right?
Yeah.
And then, things like the Royal Commission or election or COVID-19 come up and whereby you realise that it's not happy days forever and you've got to really establish yourself as an authority or really improve your knowledge so that when the times are lean or times are tougher, people still recognise you as the person to go to navigate and assist them through that time. So obviously that's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, look, all the cash we made in 03, 04, 05, 06, we lost it in 07, 08.
Yeah, that's right.
Through some bad decisions and thinking that, all you knew was a boom as a 23, 4, 5-year-old. But hey.
You think it's never going to run out.
Yeah,
the money's just going to keep coming.
Tommy, exactly.
We can, make higher risk investments. Money's always just going to be there. We're pulling it off the tree at the moment.
Whatever we touch turned to gold, but we got our wings clipped and our head pulled back in 07 or 08. And I think that was actually good. Looking back now, albeit it was very tough at the time, looking back now, it's exactly what needed to happen. And as you say, it brought us back and it grounded us. And I'm really fortunate now to, as I say, 41, I've been doing this now for half my life. And so the mistakes I've made in the past, plus the good decisions I've made in the past, I can kind of formulate all that and put all that together, in what we do now with the own business. And I love helping first home buyers. I love helping investors of all ages, but especially when I get clients in the 20s and 30s, I say, hey guys, this is so exciting. Here's the roadmap of where to go, and here's the spots not to go. It's almost like you're going on a scenic tour, taking photos. Right. Don't go too close to the cliff because you'll fall off. I did. Make sure you don't.
That's right.
Really blessed now. And like I said, I think off air earlier to you guys, I'm 41, but I really feel like I'm just starting. I've got so much energy and I'm really excited and just moved up to Brisbane 2 months ago here with the wife and the 8.5-month-old and we're pumped to be here. Yeah. Pay it down and you're still going to have equity in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
The reality of it is going to go up.
Yeah, correct.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about properties. I think you've got the notes there.
Yeah, that's right.
Not all properties go up, and we'll talk about that shortly. But most of the time, you're buying a bit of dirt in a good area, close to infrastructure and all that. It is going to go up over time.
Yeah, with the help of a team that knows what they're talking
That's
about.
That's right. Yeah.
Mate, you've recently, you mentioned it, moved down to God's country, Queensland.
Yes, love it here. Yes.
Mate, how's that transition been? We spoke about it off air. I always find it a rude awakening when I go to Sydney in particular. And I'm just greeted almost by a trumpeting sound of car horns, no matter where I am.
That was a great analogy you made. I think we last caught up at our office in Edgecliff.
Yeah.
And I remember you sitting in the boardroom and behind you on New South Head Road is the car just whizzing past. And I think you said, Hayden, it was like something that I'd been thinking for a long time. You said, I just noticed people in Sydney, they just bip their horn just at any opportunity for basically the smallest thing.
Yeah.
And it is so true. I love Sydney. We had a beautiful 4.5 years there. We've got lots of great friends there. But gee, the change of pace up here is good. And I tell you what, I don't think I've even been bipped at. And I reckon I've missed a green once till it had to go red and then green again. And no one still bipped me. But gee, I tell you what, on New South Head Road or Oxford Street in Sydney, they are quick to bip. Don't worry about
that. That's right. I mean, even run up someone's ass or whatever, it still doesn't get it doesn't get any aggro. That's right, mate. Sorry, we'll work that out. Let's get to the side here.
Details.
But mate, you've been in Sydney, as you mentioned, 4.5 years. You're now in Brisbane, obviously on the West Coast as well. So having that, I mean, there's one thing understanding the property cycles and the infrastructure and reading it from a piece of paper, but living and breathing it and seeing it firsthand in those locations gives you a greater understanding, I'd imagine, to what's actually on the ground and kicking dirt around in those areas.
Definitely. I mean, lucky enough to grow up in WA, in Perth, down Cottesloe Way, and what a great part of the world that is. But I suppose there's a whole lot happening on the east side, so the opportunity to move to Sydney to launch the business 4.5 years ago, and then here. And I feel like that's our territory. In real estate you have a territory, and for most agents they're doing local little suburbs. For us now, and for me now, having lived in 3 of those major cities, Melbourne I know like the back of my hand because I'm mad AFL MCC member, go every year.
Yeah, right.
So I'm always
Going
down
to the
there.
grand final at the Gabba this year, mate?
I've got the feelers out now for tickets. So if anyone listening's got any ticket contacts, get in touch. But
you'll have all the builders calling you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. I'll give you guys first opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
In the pivotal box.
Yeah.
The pivotal home box live from the Gabba.
Brokers who were setting up purchases portfolios were cross-collateralizing all the loans. So they were grouping the investment loans with each other, but also tying them up with the own home. Whereas John felt that there was a better way to do it, which was something he'd sort of been doing, which was to have them all separately allocated to different banks, or certainly not cross-collateralized, so that, you know, if your portfolio is worth $1 million, and one property has $100,000 worth of growth in a year, you're able to access maybe 80,000 of that to go and put a deposit on another property and grow your portfolio. Whereas if they're all cross-collateralized with different banks, they force you to get the whole portfolio value. So if you've got one that's gone up 100,000, but another one that's gone down 50,000 or hasn't gone up, then all of a sudden they say, well, the portfolio might have gone up, 100,000. But we're going to look at the portfolio as a whole, and therefore, rather than giving you the 80,000, we only deem that $60,000 is available, which can stop you from getting into the market. Yeah. And when you've got a fast-moving market like I think we're seeing in parts of Australia today, that can be pretty crucial and make a big difference. The numbers on land are this: it's gone up by about 7.2% per annum, the median house price, right? Whereas, and that means it would have in the last, call it the last 35, 40 years, it would have multiplied on itself 8.5 times. A block of land in the same period would have gone up on a per square metre rate by 40 times. So it's the land that's growing, and that's the front cover of John's book, been the front cover since day one, is, we buy real estate, which is land. Property is the building that sits on top of it, which is important, right? Because it gives you cash flow. Yeah. You can't just buy a block of land. Yeah. Otherwise, you got no
quickest
cash flow.
way to go broke, isn't it? You can either build a house or farm it, but if it just sits there.
And you guys are experts in finding ways to build an efficient home that doesn't overcapitalise, that you guys can build pretty quickly, turn around, because cash flow, getting that construction period done so you can get a tenant in, very important, right? But if you study the numbers, median house price in Brisbane gone up from 59,000 to 560,000 since 1986, right? Wow. So good, really, really good, right? But technically, that's not true, right? And what I mean by that is the property you were buying in 1986, like what was it? It was 1,000 square metres, 15, 20 Ks from a CBD.
Yeah, different size.
It's not worth 560 grand. What's that worth?
Yeah. Double.
Probably is double. I think you're right, Tom. Like it's probably worth $1 million, you know, depending which way you go and where you are. Yeah. So, and that's the power of the land, and that's what doesn't get reflected in the data that you read about is that, really it's probably grown by about 9% if you look at the actual property.
As a whole, in terms of Queensland, like we're pretty much back to normal, in most regards in terms of how we interact. We're shaking hands again. We're doing all that sort of stuff.
It's just space. You just got to have your certain amount of space between
That's
each other.
right. And other states would argue whether Queensland was ever normal.
Yeah, that's right. Hang on, let me ask me second hand.
That's right. My scar's itchy. But it's appealing, and there was some figures thrown around that a lot of Southerners have applied to come up when the borders opened, and these sort of bits and pieces to potentially move. And I think that we will see a big trend in that, and I think you'll see things like the grey nomads around the place who kind of all went back home, which is part of the issue, especially on places like Sunshine Coast and where they would traditionally reside. They've come back to their houses, and therefore the rental market's in big demand. So you'll see people like that who are cashed up or can move easy or whatever will probably relocate
as well. And I work with them. I say, mate, I'll help you out. I'll try and get November 12 for you. Look, the price isn't going to be where it needs to be and what you've listed, but maybe I can help them out with that settlement term. How does that sound? And like, yeah. do your best.
You do your best,
And it's been on the.
I've got 6 days before expiring.
He's got 6 days to get rid of it as well. How do you think he's feeling?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ray White and McGrath's at the door.
Yeah, that's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So put that together, put it to him. Hey, I managed to get November 12th. You know, we could be 50, 60K under purchase price. Present that to the owners. Make sure it's on paper. Big tip. Don't go letter offer, go REIQ contract on paper every day of the week.
It's like bringing cash to the party.
Every day of the week. Like people
You can
think,
cross it out on there and rewrite. Yeah.
people think go letter of offer. That's cool. Like it's not cool. Go contract. It's scary. Like people are scared, but it's the same as the letter of offer. But as a buyer, as a seller, it's like
A contract. Yeah.
it's a contract. And one thing I've noticed,
going to be there for you to use.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing we found
I
as well.
think that's what you guys would be suffering with, right? Expectations would have
And
changed.
hard, and you know, using the 25 grand, like you said before, obviously people want variations and changes, and you've got to kind of pull that all back and be like, look, guys, take this away 6 months ago and it wasn't here. What would you be doing? Would you be doing this, or is it just because of this that you're pursuing it? So it is like, Adam, you've got to manage these expectations and kind of make them understand that this is probably going to be here till December 31st, so use it wisely while you can. If it's an opportunity to get into the market and put you in a better position, 100%.
And then land sells, and then rego's not till next year. You just miss buying that opportunity anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to them. And we've seen buyers come and then not make the decision, miss, come back a month later. It's like, well, that area is
done. You've got to go
Out of the price point, yeah.
Yep.
And they I see over capitalising too. You know, like they just get caught up in that emotion, and they just think, well, I do want the 40 mil stoner I want, which is all well and good, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Like you're better off investing that in terms of taking off your mortgage or giving you a buffer or whatever than capitalising on marble tiles or whatever it may be.
What is the best opportunity for you?
Like working with a broker. That broker's not biased to any one particular lender. They've got 30 or 40 different banks and lenders on their panel. And same with us as Quit Rent in Queensland, we've got a few different building companies that we work with that specialise in
Come again?
Lego
cut
building.
Cut.
Specialise in different markets and different products. I guess. So when we get the customer, we will tailor make the package to suit the customer with the right builder or the right product.
You're only as good as the people around you as well. So
real estate agents within a 5K radius of the Brisbane CBD, they're doing unbelievable numbers, just crazy numbers. Their marketing strategies have changed. So instead of a few photos and 60 words of copy, it's probably 30 to 40 photos, a YouTube video with the vendor explaining the features and benefits of the property, and probably closer to 400 words of text to allow people to buy sight unseen.
Yeah. And that's these sort of events, I believe it hasn't changed the world. It's just sped up what was already happening. Like people were already wanting to work from home 10 years ago, or property industry. And I'm looking at circulating with people who are talking about PIAs and retirement plans and that sort of stuff. I'm like, how are you gonna? You've got 100 grand in your super. What you're gonna work till the day you die? You're fucked. Essentially, like you're in some serious trouble. Being a single woman at the time, with no nest egg, no property, etc., etc. So anyway, fast forward 2011, she buys a house for $311,500. Her biggest achievement, apart from me, of course. Much excitement around the home build. I think June 8th it was released, but it was 25 grand, but there was no idea on how that was going to go, how that was going to work.
The finance brokers didn't even know.
Yeah, so and it was only really what have we probably had a month, maybe 6 weeks of clarity around that. Like it hasn't. It took sort of
through to
took
mid-September.
Yeah, that's right.
For Queensland to actually get some rules around.
So everyone's going around and which is good, like stimulating the market and purchasing and all that sort of stuff. But everyone's like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get the 25 grand.
Yeah. And they had to borrow it.
Yeah, they had to borrow it. But
people
what
were like, just honour me the 25 grand, I'm getting it at some stage.
But you had these agents in these land sales offices not as experienced, who are maybe like 20 or 22, and they're like, how good's this? They're doing the shimmy, shimmy, shake, and they've got the Aldi on lay-by, and they're happy days. And without any clarity around that, and all of a sudden they've sold out the whole estate with people just with EOIs. But as we know, EOIs don't settle. Oh, sorry, if EOIs don't settle, no one gets gets anything. So, very certainly very interesting. But it leads me to the next question. Obviously, in the budget we saw there was no mention of the extension of the $25,000 home builder grant. So it raises 2 points. One, whether or not it will be extended. I think if they were going to extend it, they probably wouldn't do it now anyway, because it would take away.
It's too soon.
Take away the rush and the urgency, so it would maybe do more damage than good if people are thinking, well, I've only got 90 days or 60 days to access this, and they start to put it off. But if it doesn't get extended, hypothetically, what do you guys think next year has in store?
Well, it's just created a massive bottleneck, really. I mean, like if they don't extend it, then pretty much all the land developers have run out of stock.
Yeah.
So, it's not like making a pizza. You can't just come in and
make it today.
Build a block of land today and deliver it tomorrow. These things take time. Our development team worked very hard to get new land on ground to get it all moving. But it will slow down next year. Yeah. At the moment, like when the home builder hit, I had about 40 lots to sell. Now I've got about 2.
Yeah, wow.
So then just whatever falls over, if one does.
If one does, yeah. But I mean, like I actually did have a fallover last week, and I sold it within 6 hours because I've got a lineup of people who are ready to go. So
because I can tell you, no matter how good Bernard Salt is or Terry Ryder, and they're all really, really great, but McDonald's and those guys are spending billions of dollars of research on research and development to pinpoint where their next site's going to be.
Yeah, Coles don't put a Coles in the middle of nowhere.
Correct.
No.
And we've got a neighbourhood centre coming very soon with a couple of fast food.
Yeah.
So right in the middle of our project. So
yeah, right. And so you've got in terms of the project itself, you've got retail to come inside in the project. So there you have it, guys. We hope you enjoyed our favourite moments from Season 1 of Everything Property by Pivotal Homes. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And again, we really appreciate your support for the podcast so far. Now, don't forget, we will be launching Season 2 in early 2021. Again, bringing you the greatest minds in Australian property. And we look forward to speaking with you then. Take care, have a safe and happy Christmas, and we'll see you next year.